Before I was an Avenger, I made mistakes. And a lot of enemies.
Last time we spoke was at the Avengers Endgame junket, and I asked you about Black Widow, and you said, until I'm at Crafty eating turkey cold cuts, like I'm not gonna, this isn't happening yet. So it's crazy. We're like here now.
Yeah, it is crazy. It's also, I mean, I still feel that way. I'm like, until I am, on the set and the first AD is screaming action, that first day, I just never think something's going to ever come to fruition. I think that's just part of being an actor for hire, is that you just are always sort of like, do I have the job or not sure? It's like ingrained in all of us. And I'm still kind of pinching myself that this movie is actually really now finally coming out.
Well, we're all pinching ourselves. It's incredible, by the way. So congratulations to both of you. My first question is for you, Scarlett. Obviously you're reprising this character. And I think a question that pops into a lot of people's heads is, how do you go back to this version of Natasha? What was important for you to bring to the surface about her? And like, what new versions of her were you excited to explore?
It was a really unique experience of working backwards, because when we were shooting Endgame, we knew obviously what her ultimate sacrifice would be, and wanted to make sure that felt like a choice, and came with peace for her, and that she was okay with. She says that to Clint. She says, it's okay, and she means it. She means it. She had to have had she had to have reconciled something within herself. And so we knew that this was the opportunity to make that happen. So, but we knew, okay, at the end of this film, there has to be self-forgiveness so that she can move on to that place. And and then it was really just kind of chipping away at it and finding the best way to tell that story. And make it dynamic. And of course, what better way to do that than with a poking and prodding younger sister character who's like, oh, you don't want to look backwards? Here it is. Here's your mess. Like, you have to face it, and she drags Nat kicking and screaming through that process.
Wild. Yeah. Well, speaking of your character, Florence, I think you guys definitely found the best way to tell that story, by the way. But Florence, this is your character's first introduction into the MCU. Are you still geeking out a little bit? Like, how do you feel? Like, how is this experience for you?
Totally. I mean, we made the movie 2 years ago now. It was crazy that I even got the job, and then crazy that I was even on set, and then crazy that we even wrapped. And then, we were about to release the film, and then the pandemic happened. And so there's just been a lot of like this stop, start. Is this real or is this surreal? And I feel really excited now to show people what we made 2 years ago. Because, I watched the movie the last week, and even though it was on my laptop and my laptop doesn't go very loud, I was just so impressed and so excited. And so I was so happy that I loved the film, and I would have loved the film whether I was going to the cinema and I had nothing to do with it. Like, I was just so proud of it. And the fact that this is my first, here I am, welcome to the MCU. I was just so amazed with all the work that we put in, and just how enjoyable it was to watch.
It makes me happy to hear you say that you're so proud of it, even on a small screen. I can't wait for you to see it on a big screen, because I was so proud, as a woman watching it, hearing you guys have conversations about reproduction, even the little jokes that you guys made to each other about the vest. I was like, this is a conversation I would have with my friend in a car. It honestly, to see it in an MCU film was like, mind blown. How does it feel to you guys to be a part of this project? Because this is the most female-centered MCU movie I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, that was our goal when we really looked at, okay, all right, we don't have to tell this story. We're telling it because we want to. okay, so that's really liberating. It's daunting in some ways, but it gives you all this free reign. And we'd be amiss if we didn't reflect on what's happening in the zeitgeist and how empowering it is for women to be lifting each other up out of a situation and strengthening one another and supporting one another. I mean, there's definitely another version of this that would be the, movie that we probably would have made 10 years ago, which is like, two women facing off to gain power. And, that's not how women react to one another or relate to one another. How much more interesting is this story, to really see women coming out the other side as survivors from some shared traumatic experience that, they both, or they all have had to face and something that's been holding them back that they can now move forward from. Like, that's just incredible, that we were able to be in a place where the studio would support that message. It's been a long journey to get here, and it's exciting to know that we're never going to be looking backwards. It's just going to be moving forward.
I was just gazing at her and nodding the entire way through. Yeah, exactly. I think I don't know. I think from my perspective, coming on board to something this bold, but also this female is such a luxury that it's kind of going hand in hand with it then being a massive movie that lots of women and men will go and watch. And, it tackles so many subjects and in such a wonderful way where you really can't look away from it and you have to listen. And it's all information that you can swallow and you can digest, and you can also enjoy this movie about family and about these two sisters. So yeah, I'm just incredibly grateful that Cate Shortland directed it, that Scarlett is obviously at the lead and produced it. And we really had so many amazing women on set also guiding this film into the right direction. And so even though it's obviously really cool that it's a big Marvel superhero film, I think if you took that away, it would still be just as impressive. And that's really exciting.
You're going to get a back hunch.
Listen to your mother.
Oh my God, this...
Up.
All right, enough, all of you. I didn't say anything. That's not fair.
Congratulations on the film. You're a father figure in this film. You're also a father to 11. So I'm curious, what draws you to these types of roles? And are you the best dad in Hollywood?
Answer the second question, no. Answer the first question. I don't know if I'm drawn to the roles or the roles are drawn to me or whatever it is in this world, this weird kismet coincidence world where, and I mean, the really interesting thing is I've recently become like a stepdad in my real life, and people are always like, oh, did that help you with the part? And I'm like, actually, the part sort of helped me with that. Like, a lot of times I feel like, when you're ready for something emotionally, the part kind of comes to you to prepare you to play it in life, or life prepares you to play the part. I do find that has been the case for me. I mean, I've been circling around commitment and family in my life and been very fearful of it a lot of my life. And then now I've been circling around and finally have landed myself in a situation. And it's only been, I think, as a result of tapping into a lot of these things that Stranger Things and this thing, how it affects me in my life when I play it.
I love it. As someone who's like close with her dad, I feel like you're coming for Tom Hanks because I watch you and I'm like, you're such a dad. I don't know if you want to have kids of your own one day, but you're such a dad.
Thank you. That's very nice of you to say. It's very sweet.
Yeah, in the best way possible. What's super fun about watching you in this film is you play, the Russian Captain America. Was it fun for you to play that disgruntled Cap? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, one of the things I love about him is so often, you have this character, Red Guardian, you know, he's kind of the counterpart to Captain America. And you've seen all these movies like Iron Man. It's like we watched Tony Stark like become Iron Man, find this thing inside him that is beautiful and heroic. And Captain America is this, you know, scrawny guy, and he gets this thing and he becomes, and like we skip all of that in this movie, and we start with like him just at the end of his rope, and just Red Guardian is just past his prime. He's like out of shape, you know, a mess, like emotionally just angry, resentful, full of remorse. And I like love that, you know, that's one of the things that makes him, and he sort of starts on his journey to redemption from there, to sort of reinvest in this family and the choices that he made, and try to figure out what his life has become and why it's become what it's become. So yeah, that was what was really drew me to the character, was just how, you know, amazingly three-dimensional he was. And he's a guy, you know, this guy who has like crazy tattoos and is like rough and tumble, and also he like wants people to laugh at his jokes. I mean, like really, you know, sort of sweet. And like, so those sorts of complexities I feel like drew me to him. And he's like, yeah, he's just an incredible guy. Like I love him. I don't know if, you know, people will have mixed feelings about him, but I really love him.
I disagree. He's like my new favorite, like Marvel all time. Like I think everyone's gonna be obsessed. We'll see.
Right.
It's. I wanted to ask you, you know, because you bring up a good point that we start at like the end of his journey. Did you build his backstory at all? And what is your version of his backstory? Because of course, you know, we can look to the comics, but what was your version? What did you build for him?
I mean, the great thing about it is, you know, and some people ask, they're like, what are the actual events with him and Captain America? Did you ask the Marvel guys like what it was? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, no, because the great thing about Red Guardian is he lives in his own fantasy universe. So whether or not any of this is real, he believes it's real fully, that he fought these battles and he did these heroic things. So whether or not, I mean, it's kind of great if none of it's real. Just his confabulatory mind has created this reality. So that was really important to figure out, that as he sits in prison, he's come up with all these justifications for his life and what he had done. And that was all rich. And then the real important thing to figure out backstory wise was the prelude to the movie in terms of what their lives were like when they were younger. They were in this constructed ruse that Melina calls it, of young Natasha, young Melina, and me and Melina. And you know, there were things that came out of that. I don't know what kind of spoiler event we'll get here, but there's you know, there's a certain song that plays very heavily in the movie, and that all came out of this exploration and rehearsal that we had. That we were like, you know, we'd sit around, the four of us, and go like, what would they listen to? Like, you know, maybe Yelena did have a favorite tape that she always wanted Daddy to play in the car. I mean, there were all these sort of speculations based on our own personal things that we would, and so that was where the true beauty was, and that was where the connection of the four of us came from. It was like, you know, I could say to Florence, like, what did your dad, you know, do? And we could play on that together, or like Rachel, myself. And that's where the richness of the connections came from us doing that rehearsal and then us bringing it to the film.
Wow, that's so crazy you say that, because I grew up in the 90s, and I don't want to spoil the song, but it is a song that like your dad teaches you. I learned, you know, that song from my father. I had to ask you about the suit. You know, did it fit? Was it made to be uncomfortable? What was the suit like?
No, it's made to fit. I mean, the funny thing about these suits is like they print out a 3D model of your body, and then they fashion the suit, which is, by the way, disgusting and terrifying. That somewhere there's still a 3D printed model of my, at my worst, 275-pound David Harbour sitting somewhere in a closet, just like, and then they, you know, they sculpt it to that thing. And then, of course, like on the day that we do the scene in the bathroom, they really launder it, freshly laundered, like those jeans that just came out of the dryer. So it's quite tight. And the scene, there's not much acting involved, just the physics of trying to get it over your love handles. It's very, you know, easy to play. But yeah, they sculpt it right to your body. It's and it's really enjoyable to move it. It's really enjoyable to wear. It is if I could just wear that for the rest of my life and not have to choose my clothing, I'd be down. I'd be down to just walk around with that for the rest of my life.
Let's get you back in there. I mean, do you think you're going to get to see Red Guardian again? Can you pitch us his Disney Plus series?
I mean, I hope so. I'll tell you what, I'm ready. I mean, you know, tweet your local Disney representative at Kevin Feige, whatever, and let him know how you feel. Yeah, I love this character. I would love. There's so many things you could do with him too. There's so many worlds he can exist in, and so we'll see. We'll see if there's something next.
Oh,
I hope so.
Yeah, I'd love to ponder on that. It's funny when you look at like all the stuff going on in your life and the characters that you've been bringing to screen as of late. I feel like Russians are just this recurring theme. Does Harbour ever meet Red Guardian in Russian prison? Have you thought of this?
I don't think that would be, God, that would have been a great idea. I still got a little more filming maybe. Maybe I could talk to the Duffer Brothers about that. We should put an Easter egg. Yes. That would be wow, this is a great idea. We don't have to credit you, do we?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. I'm trying to pay off my student loan.
Fine. A special thanks. Yeah, no, it's a really wild coincidence that I wound up in 2 Russian prisons. And I think, I've talked about it too. It was like I had the beard and the long hair, and I was prepared to play sort of like, the next season and then this came up, and I was like, oh, I'm definitely using the beard and the whole thing. I mean, it's going to be great. And Marvel was like, yeah, okay, we didn't really, but okay, that sounds great. And then when Stranger Things rolled around, I was like, we can't have it be the same look, guys. It's a Russian prison. So we came up with a whole backstory for that on the fly. And I mean, they're very good at that. Duffer Brothers are very into using what they have, improving based on, and their ideas get even better as a result of that. So, a lot of the look that you see of the shaved head and the whole thing was, we came up with kind of a different prison based on that. And I think it made it so much better. So sometimes these things that are creative impediments or whatever become actual like gifts.
Anything you can tell us about Stranger Things 4? The whole world's obviously so stoked for it.
Yeah. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear they're still stoked. I'm sorry that it's taken so long. I mean, I feel bad personally. I want to apologize to every single one of you damn Stranger Things fans. It's just really good, and that takes time, but you're going to love this season. It's extraordinary. Hopper is better than ever. And I can't wait for you to see it.
I'm sorry. We had our orders and we played our roles.
It wasn't real.
Rachel, you were so exceptional in this film, as you are in everything you do. It was such a pleasure watching you like in an MCU movie. It was really cool. And I know you've been a fan of Cate Shortland for a long time, the director. So I wanted to know, why did she draw you to this role, and what was it like working with her?
Well, I'd seen her three movies, Somersault and Laurie, and I'm just blanking on the name of the Berlin Syndrome. And I wanted to work with her for years. So Marvel and Scarlett are so genius to ask someone like Cate to tell the story of 2 sisters, a mother figure. It's a very emotional story, and all Cate's films have really been around young women in jeopardy, finding themselves. Those are the stories she's always told. So it was really brilliant to ask her to tell the story with 3 female leads. I was so thrilled to be invited to do this.
And so what was it like when you finally got to work with her?
Cate is just so compassionate and warm, that really knows what she wants, and she listens to everybody on the set, hears everybody's point of view. She's never grumpy or loses her temper. I mean, to steer such a massive ship like the Black Widow film, I mean, I can't imagine how stressful it is, but she was so calm, and the whole crew just loved her, and the actors we were kind of in heaven with her, because she's a real actors director. So yeah, it was a great experience.
Oh, you can tell. I feel like all the chemistry of the whole family, all of you guys, it just like shines. And I'm sure that's a big testament to Cate. This for me was one of the most female focused Marvel films that we've ever seen. So it meant a lot to me to watch it. What did it mean to you to be a part of it?
I love telling stories about women, I guess because I am one. And I've got really great female friends in my life. And yeah, I love acting opposite women. Most of my career up until recently, I've really acted opposite men, which is really great too. But it's lovely now to be telling stories about women in this really unusual way, because this is a great big spectacular Marvel action movie with big superhero set pieces, but at the heart of it, it's about women coming into their own power, finding their family. Yeah, there's a lot of very emotional things at the heart of it.
Oh, I love that. I also wanted to just dive deep into Molina because she's just such a badass character. And I'm curious as to what backstory you built for her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, she was trained as a Black Widow. I think she was plucked from her mother. I think she, like a single mom, I always imagine that she had, and she was plucked by Dracoff when she was probably 8 years old. So the Red Room is all she's known, and her life as a Black Widow is all she's known. I don't think she's really thought much outside of it, but I think she's had enough of it, and she's retired to the Russian countryside to be a pig farmer, which is not your stereotypical thing to do. So she's a scientist, and the pigs are involved in a secret thing that I can't talk about, otherwise I'll have to go to Marvel jail. She's I think she's been through a lot of pain, but she's very tough, very strong. But there's a big beating heart ready to thaw underneath.
I love that. And watching this film too, it almost feels like a Bond spy film. So I wanted to know, did your husband, Daniel Craig, did you lean on him for anything? Do you feel like you're a better spy than he is?
I mean, gosh, we filmed them at the same time, actually, in the same studio at Pinewood, but there's such different franchises, because, the Marvel characters are set, it is a brilliantly mythological universe. It's not something that really exists, whereas the Bond universe is rooted in, as exciting as it is, it's more human beings don't have any superpowers, I guess, is the simplest way to put it. It's just real life, but a little more exciting.
Did you guys bounce ideas off each other since you were filming at the same time?
You know what? We really don't talk about our work to each other. We just kind of we don't talk shop, I guess, is the easiest way to explain it. Yeah, we just keep our work private.
Okay, you got a plan, or shall I just stay duck and cover?
My plan was to drive us away.
Well, your plan sucks.
Hi, O-T, how are you?
Naz, what's going on? I'm so glad you wore that jacket.
Thank you so much.
Bringing me life right now.
Right? You have to wear things that make you smile. But speaking of giving you life, I'm sure this role was life-changing in some way. I mean, landing a role in an MCU movie is just so cool. What was the moment that you realized you were in an MCU movie?
Gosh, I mean, when they signed the contract, and then I was like, well, then now I'm in an MCU movie, aren't I? But also, I mean, every stage of it was wondrous, doing the audition, going to Comic-Con for the first time, rehearsing with the cast, Florence and Scarlett. Each moment was like, whoa, this is, a bit surreal.
Was there a specific moment on set that you realized, wow, this is a big deal?
Well, to be honest, most of the time I spend my time trying not to make it a big deal, because I don't work well under that kind of pressure, as if I'm honest. So I just had to tell myself, just another day at work. There's Scarlett again.
That's incredible. It's so true that probably is very helpful. Your character's so cool and interesting. When you're watching, you're sort of wondering what the backstory is there. So I was wondering if you could tell us the backstory that you created for Mason.
Well, listen, I can't go into all of it, but they're definitely, I mean, so Mason is ex-military. He's got an experience. He probably, works the highest bidder and is probably a bit disaffected and feels maybe a bit cynical about the world powers and the way they all work. And that's why he's ready to work for the highest bidder. The only difference is, I think with Natasha, it's not just about money. He's not just a mercenary in this instance. He's got a connection. He has a soft spot. They have a history together, I think that's one of the interesting things that plays out in the subtext between them.
Right. It's just, I mean, obviously I don't want you to spoil anything, but the whole time I was like, were they romantically involved in a previous life?
I mean, you get that sense, don't you? I mean, you know, I can't talk too much about what we decided, you know, because who knows what might happen in future movies, but there's definitely more than meets the eye, I think, between them.
Okay. And then as far as Cate and the direction that you got for the character, I was speaking to her earlier and she was saying that she writes backstories for all the characters. Did you get that from her or did you make it like yourself?
Well, we didn't get it in written form, but, you know, her and Scarlett and I did sit down in rehearsals and we talked through, you know, what Cate had figured, what I thought, what you know, Scarlett's intuitions were, and we created this idea, this vision about what their past was.
Right. Well, your character sort of reminds me of Q from the Bond films. I was wondering if that was an inspiration for you.
Yeah, Q, but with more flirting is, you know, because Q never flirts with Bond, which I think is a bit of a missed opportunity, seeing how cool Bond is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. That is true. Would you want your character to be the Q for Avengers now that Tony Stark is gone?
Well, listen, somebody has to hook them up with their gadgets. So, you know, I'm available at the right price.
At the right price. Do you think that we'll see your character again?
Yeah, no, I think there's a great space for Mason. I think he's a really fun character and has a utility within the stories and stuff like that. So I'd certainly love to do more. I had such a good time working with, you know, Marvel and Disney on the project. So yeah, we'll see if he gets another outing.
If he does get another outing and you did want to see him come back, how would you like to see him come back? In what capacity?
Well, you know, I think he's really fun. I'd like to see him go on some missions, you know, that kind of like Mission Impossible thing when you've got your techie guy with you. I think he's a lot of fun. So I think there's potential for something like that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to feel the same way after they see this film. A lot of your scenes are with Scarlett Johansson. What was it like filming and shooting with her?
Well, you know, she's really fun. She's really mischievous in some ways, you know, mischievous sense of humor. She's really spontaneous and she's really charismatic. I mean, gosh, it's, you know, it's a lot.
At some point, we all have to choose between what the world wants you to be and who you are.
I wanted to know what it was like working with Scarlett and Florence, because their chemistry and sisterhood on screen is one of the best parts of this movie.
It was a joy working with them. I don't know, the first thing they shot together, I think, was the fight in the apartment. And they shot that for 2 weeks on and off. So they got to know each other so well and they really had to work together. They were always having fun together.
Do you do anything on set to sort of create that sisterly bond when it comes to like direction?
We did 4 days of rehearsals and I did backstories for all the characters that they could read. And that went into their childhood and their relationships as kids. So they knew that they'd had an amazing bond as children as well. And that what had happened, you know, that they'd been ripped apart.
Wow, that's so interesting. Normally when you talk to actors, I feel like they have to create that backstory. So I think that's really cool that you did that for them.
I think if they want it, they could ask me. If they didn't want it, they didn't. That wasn't useful. Yeah.
I love that. Well, you know, this is one of the most female-focused Marvel films, I think, that I have ever seen. So what did it mean to you to be a part of something like this?
I think it was kind of life-changing to be a part of this. It certainly made me more appreciative of what I do. I think before I might have taken it for granted. And I think now, I don't know, it's such a gift doing a film like this because it's so incredibly hard, but you feel like you're making a difference. Yeah, and I think that's pretty awesome.
I love that answer. But you make a difference in like all your films, because I feel like in all your films, I was talking to Rachel about this earlier, actually, they're always about these strong female characters. What was it like, going from directing those films to now being a director in the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Like, can you paint the picture of like what the difference is?
The biggest difference is when you make an indie film, you've got 20 or 30 people on set. And when we were doing our big scenes, we'd have 300 to 400 people on set. So, so it's kind of forgetting what that big structure is, and you just have to walk in, and you feel thankful that all those people are working with you. But what you have to do is kind of not think about them and just focus on the actors, or just focus on that quarter second of that kick, or the half second of the twirl, or, you can't focus on the big picture. You have to focus entirely on the details.
Yeah. It's like life. You just have to be present, but it's so hard when everything's going on. Let's talk about those kicks and stuff, because this film is so badass. There's so many incredible action sequences. Do you have a favorite?
I love two fights in particular. I love the fight between the girls, and I love the Taskmaster fight with Scarlett, because we talked about that as a girl walking to a train station and she gets attacked. It had to feel that she was fighting someone who she couldn't get the upper hand, and that it had stakes. And I really like it. And I love all the fire in it and just the beauty of it.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a beautiful film. I love that you brought up Taskmaster, and I love the way that Taskmaster is used in the film, obviously without spoiling anything, but can you give us any insight into, what was going on in your brain as far as like how to utilize this character for this film?
I think Taskmaster's Natasha's psyche.
Whoa.
So I think in a way, when we see them together, it's like her doppelganger, like it's the shadow side of her. And I think what she learns during the film is she has to love the shadow side. And that includes Taskmaster, and it includes all the action she's taken and all the bad things she's done. She has to forgive herself.
I love that. Where did that idea or notion come from? Did that just like come to you one day? Did it come from like doing research on like the comic book version?
I think it just comes from thinking about trauma and how we exist and coexist with it in our bodies and our minds, and how we have to make room for it. And sometimes beautiful things can flower out of ugliness.
Oh, so beautiful. I love it. Another thing I really, really loved in the film was the music.
He is amazing. I love him so much.
Yes.
Lorne Balfe.
Yes. Oh, I waited for that name to pop up when the credits were up, because I'm like, this is incredible. Tell us about how you set the tone, with him, and worked on setting the tone for this film through music.
I sent him a couple of pieces of music. One is called Dido's Lament, and it's got the lyrics in it, Return to Me. And it was really about Natasha and her soul. And then he took that and he recreated the melody, and he threaded that through. And then he took Russian composers and worked with a Russian choir in London. And he and I had a ball together.
Yeah.
And we were never really in the same country. So he got on so well with the editors and I, because, and the music editor, Robbie. It was one of the most fun parts of the film was doing that beautiful music.
Oh, it's so.
You know what he said? He said it had to have her story in it. It had to have her soul. And I thought that was so beautiful.
Yeah. And you can feel her entire soul through the film, right? Like that's so, and it's this beautiful thing because we know, we no longer have Natasha in the world we live in now. So I love that you guys brought that to light. When you're watching this movie, it feels like it's like a Bond spy MCU film. Was that your inspiration at all when you came to this project?
What was really my inspiration? You know what I looked at, funnily enough? I looked at things like No Country for Old Men, Thelma and Louise, what's it called? The Bond film.
Skyfall.
But really, I also looked at stuff where women were dealing with trauma.
Trauma. Wow.
Yeah. And how do you put yourself back together? And yeah, I think Thelma and Louise is great for that because those women are so funny, but they've been through so much.
I'm done running.